Okay, what they do with revolvers a lot of times is they'll say stuff like, "What about multiple attackers?" Well, if you guys know anything about Minneapolis riots, I live close to Minneapolis, okay? I've seen big crowds around people. Not only that, shots have been fired around a lot of people and big crowds. Now, in Minneapolis, if this was Antifa or BLM, which is Black Lives Matter group, that were downtown during the riots, if you have a 17 shot magazine, or let's say you had a revolver, a 5 shot revolver, and let's say that you had one little speed loader with you, does it really matter if all these guys right here, and not just them, but this whole pile right here that I can't even fit on here, does it really matter that you have 17 shots if these guys could overwhelm you and you're never going to have enough capacity to take care of all these guys here? It really does you no good. The net effect is going to be the same thing. If they want to kill you, if you have a revolver or a semi-auto, the net effect is going to be the same. You're not better just because you have 17 rounds, okay? You're better based on their reaction, which is different than what you think. A lot of people think that these big crowds usually just come in and attack you. Most of these people won't. Most of these people won't attack. But they will come close and intimidate you. But that doesn't mean that they're an attacker. In order to be an attacker, you have to be one that's in the progress of attacking. So these guys online saying, what about multiple attackers? Well, most of these multiple attackers, if you had a revolver, aren't going to mess with you, especially if you have a gun. And especially if the first shot goes off, they're pretty much all going to scatter. There might be a couple in the group, but very rarely. There might be a couple in the group that want to challenge a gun. But the thing you have to understand is even if you have a revolver, things happen so quickly in a defense situation that they are not going to be counting shots because they don't even know what kind of gun you have because they scattered so quickly. They don't even know if it was a 5 shot revolver or what the heck it was. All they know that a shot went off. So they're not interested in a math lesson about how many shots you have in your revolver, like a 5 shot revolver, because number one, they don't know if you have a revolver. They don't know what kind of gun it is to begin with because they fled so quickly. And number two is they're not interested in a math lesson and counting shots and going, okay, he fired 5 shots, let's go attack him. No, that isn't how it works, people. A Cleveland bar, okay, listen to this. A Cleveland bar, there was a guy that had a 5 shot revolver without a reload. He fired a shot inside a Cleveland bar and over 100 people left the bar. Went right out the front door, running for their lives. Did anybody know it was a revolver? No. Did anybody know that if they saw it was a revolver, was anybody counting how many shots the guy had and said something like, okay, he fired 5 shots, let's go attack him? No, not at all. After that first shot went off, the whole entire bar cleared out. Okay? So a lot of times what these semi-auto only guys, I know that some of you semi-auto guys out there understand that revolvers are fine for defense. But you got some of these semi-auto only guys out here that try to tell you that you're at a disadvantage just because you have a revolver. And what they base that on is they base that on events where a person lost their lives with the revolver without looking at the reason why they lost their life with the revolver. Because for as many people that lose their lives with the revolver, just as many lose their lives with the semi-auto. Because of different things, because of tactics, like you're training or you're not taking cover, you can still get killed with the 17-round magazine as well as you can with the revolver. Even though a revolver has less capacity, if your tactics are down and you know how to take cover and you're wise with your shots, you might survive your defense encounter, whereas somebody with the 17-round magazine that takes ammo for granted and capacity for granted might get killed. Why? Because because in their mind, they have this false assumption that more means better. And that's true to a point. But the thing is that more being better means that you have to use the ammo wisely too. Because if I fire 17 shots, okay, but the first 3 shots that I fire miss and one of these guys shoots me, what good is the 17 round magazine if I don't have good shot placements? Nothing. It's no good for nothing. It's how you use the ammo. It's not capacity, how much you have. It's how you use it. And this notion that people say about revolvers being low capacity, they aren't really low capacity because you have speed loaders. Okay, I can load up 10 of these right now and I can have 50 rounds in my pocket. Is it slower to reload a revolver than a semi-auto? Yes, but that isn't the only factor in the defense situation. You have factors like situational awareness, your draw, how fast, like how fast your draw is, how you use cover, how you use your tactics. If you go out in the open with a revolver, you can get shot just as well as you go out in the open with the 17-round magazine. You can still get shot. It doesn't matter that you have 17-round magazine. Somebody could be throwing lead at you after your first shot is fired. So this whole thing about revolvers being, low capacity, it's not good enough for self-defense, just isn't true at all. As a matter of fact, Claude Werner is one of the best defense researchers out there. And not just him, but there's a lot of people, including myself, that have researched revolvers in defense situations. And people are successful defending themselves with the revolver. It's not the death sentence that people say it is. Because what they do is they'll build a straw dummy by using one bad example of a revolver guy that lost his life that was using bad tactics. And they'll use that straw dummy to paint everybody that has a revolver as being the same way, that they're going to end up the same way. And it just isn't true. Because you can find bad examples with a guy with the 17-shot magazine that lost his life out in the open. Okay. Police officers have high capacity. They get shot all the time with revolvers. Why? Because they're in a jacket pocket or something and the cop comes up on the guy's got a revolver and he knows that he's got to make his shot count, and it's sad, but he'll pull out a little little snub-nosed revolver and shoot the cop before the cop could even draw his weapon. So you guys have to understand that revolvers are excellent for defense, okay? And they're feared too because of the fact that you can have a small J-frame revolver in your pocket. And police officers know that people with their hands in their pocket can be dangerous at close quarters because you can whip that thing out like nothing. It's small. And you can get shots first before a big semi-auto, because a big semi-auto, like for instance, a police officer might have a 3 retention holster or something like that. But not only that, he's got a bigger handgun, more travel to pull out of the holster, more weight, and has to do a lot of things to get the gun out of the holster. So 17 rounds versus 5 with the guy with a hoodie jacket with a J-frame revolver or something like that. He can just pull it out, and the officer is at a disadvantage because he has to draw faster than this guy here. And that's one of the reasons why one of the top police officers in Chicago that got in the most gunfights, Bob Stash, Chicago Police Department. That's one of the reasons why even he had mentioned that when he did traffic stops, he'd always have a J-frame revolver in his jacket. And that kind of threw guys off at the traffic stop because the guys probably assumed that he was going to use his service revolver if something should go wrong. But little to their surprise, he would have his hand in his jacket on a J-frame revolver in case the traffic stop went bad. He could whip out the revolver and defend himself instead of having to reach for his service revolver, which was probably a SIG 220 45 ACP, I think it was, he said. So even he knew that he had an advantage for speed and to carry the revolver so that he could defend his life on duty. And the fact is that every time you draw a gun, you have to fill out a report. So if he draws out a gun, even if he doesn't shoot anybody, he has to fill out a report. But with the revolver, he could have his hand on the revolver in his pocket without having to fill out a report. Because why? He hasn't drawn the weapon yet. The only time he's going to draw the weapon is if somebody is doing something that needs that's immediate, unavoidable danger to him or another officer. And there are a lot of police officers that support each other, and what will happen is one of them will be at a traffic stop window, and then another one will show up. And some of these guys that do show up do have J-frame revolvers, and they do have one hand in their pocket, ready for trouble, okay? So they're copying the same thing that Bob Stash was doing with having a J-frame revolver in their right pocket, jacket pocket. So sometimes your backup is actually used instead of your main carry. So when it comes to revolvers, the thing we have to understand is it's not about the gun, it's about the person. You know, revolvers do have less capacity, that's true, but it's how you use the rounds, it's your tactics. There are so many variables in defense situations that you have to understand that it's not just about ammo capacity. There are so many variables that have to come together to win that gunfight, okay? Now, what happens in defense is a lot of people that do defense research, they do it improperly. And what they do is they compare the law enforcement officer with the private citizen. As a private citizen, when you have a revolver, okay, if there's a robber in a store and you fire one shot and you're taking cover and that robber flees the store, you don't have to chase him and get in an additional gunfight. Whereas a police officer, let's say that in the old days, police officer shows up with his revolver, he would have to get in a shootout with the suspect, but then he would have to pursue the suspect and get in additional gunfights. Whereas you and me as a private citizen wouldn't have to get into gunfights. All we have to do is take cover and defend ourselves. That's all we're required to do. Whereas a law enforcement officer is going to need more resources, which means more ammo, okay? And then that's where this falls in place, where an officer does need more resources, okay? So fine, they got semi-autos now. But here's the thing. Dennis Tooler himself even said, the guy that invented the Tooler's drill for law enforcement, 70% of police officers lose their lives. Why? Not because of capacity, okay? You think capacity would save people's lives. It was because they didn't take cover. Cover is very important. Cover is so important that if 70% of police officers lose their lives not using cover, that means that there's only a 30% emphasis on cover. Why is there only a 30% emphasis on cover? Why is it that way? We should put cover as number one because cover can save your life. A tree in front of a car engine or something. You have to get somewhere and you have to approach those suspects from cover to cover to cover to cover, not just be out in the open and get shot, okay? And that's one of the problems with law enforcement is once they switched over from revolvers to semi-autos, they subconsciously, they were thinking more is better. I got more firepower. Okay, I can run out in the middle here and take on all these guys, right? Because I've got a lot of ammunition. So what happens is you take your ammo for granted thinking that it's safety. It is not safety. I don't care if you got a 30-round mag. It is not safety. If you do something stupid and you get out in the open here, somebody could shoot you. Even somebody that's never been to the range, that hardly ever practices, doing that pray and spray thing like this, they could still kill you. Whereas a trained person, a trained police officer back then with a revolver, he knew, conscious and subconsciously, he knew that he was going to run out. So what did he do? He used his shots wisely. Okay? He didn't pray and spray like cops do today. There's a lot of decent cops out there, but I'm sure a lot of you law enforcement officers that are on YouTube have said this too, is that some officers with their magazines and stuff. Sometimes they would get to a place where they had to be in a shootout, and they just started shooting round after round after round and never hit a damn thing because they were praying and spraying out of panic fire. Panic fire, okay? Whereas the old-time law enforcement guys, I'm not knocking law enforcement. What I'm saying is that the guys that used revolvers back then knew that they had less capacity, knew that they had to be a better shot. So they thought wisely about cover. They thought wisely about how to use their shots. Whereas today, what was happening is 70% of law enforcement officers were getting killed by not using cover, by thinking that firepower and safety means high capacity. Now, there's nothing wrong with high capacity, but it's the way your mindset is about capacity. The fact is that, yes, I might have a 17-round magazine, but I'm going to stay with my cover and fire a shot if I need to, but then I'm going to stay with that cover. I'm not going to run out in the open here and just start shooting all these guys and take incoming fire and get killed, okay? I'm going to think wisely. I'm going to think like the revolver guy, okay? I got 5 rounds. I'm going to stay with my cover. I'm going to protect myself, shoot a couple rounds, and I'm going to go from cover to cover to cover. I'm not going to be out in the open like a guy with the semi-auto. Okay, this is not competition shooting, people. This is saving your life. This is self-defense. Completely different from competition shooting. As a matter of fact, defense shooting is actually reverse of competition shooting. What you're doing is you're shooting to get to cover. You're not shooting from cover and going out in the open and engaging multiple targets. What you're doing is you're doing the reverse. You're going to cover and staying there. Now, competition shooters are all amped up all the time. So they're hasty. So if they're behind cover, they've been trained over and over again, cemented in their mind that they need to rush out of that cover right away. That is not what you do. You're not going from cover. Let's say that these 3 are cover. You're not going from this cover to this cover to this cover. It's not a game. It's not a game. You can get shot out here, okay? It's not a game. It's real life. If you have to stay with your cover and you know it's safe to stay there, then you should stay there. You're only defending yourself. If they want to come to your cover, let them come. You got the advantage. Why go out in the open and go boom, 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 and take the chance of getting shot like a competition shooter? Because a competition shooter, what they'll do is they'll double tap. Like, let's say you got 3 targets here. What they'll do is they'll double tap, like on their course. You got 3 targets, okay? Often what a competition shooter does is they'll slice the pie where they're exposed just to one of the targets, okay? And they'll go like this. They'll go boom, 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 like this. But the question has to be asked is, what if you didn't incapacitate this guy and he's got a gun and he's still shooting at you? Why are you out here in the open engaging this target and this target when this guy here hasn't been incapacitated yet? That's one of the reasons why you stay behind cover and you don't rush your cover. You slice the pie slowly. You don't rush. You don't rush and go boom, 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 boom. Because of the fact that one of these guys, if they all had guns and they were shooting back at you, what if them 2 shots for each of these guys amounted in 2 of these guys not being incapacitated? Well, now you got 2 guys shooting at you while you're trying to finish up the 3rd guy. Makes no sense at all, okay? So that's why this competition nonsense is a bunch of baloney. It's just training you. It's training you how to rush your cover because of a stupid stopwatch, okay? You can time yourself with a stopwatch. There's nothing wrong with that, giving yourself stress and stuff like that. But when you engage a target and you only have to shoot twice and they call that incapacitation, that is not right at all. That is not incapacitation. You don't know if this person is going to be incapacitated or not. And besides that, they have poor standards anyway, because even if you don't shoot, which would be the heart area, about a 4-inch target, okay? Like, let's say the heart area, like these 4-inch targets that I shoot at here, this is a 4-inch area right here. If you don't hit the heart, you're not going to drop the blood pressure. So a competition shooter just doing a double tap here and a double tap here, that ain't going to cut it because you're not dropping the blood pressure. So the standards of competition shooting are not that good, because you can win the competition with speed by missing this target right here. Just by sheer speed, you can win the competition rather than making good hits. You know what I mean? And so the good competition shooters are always the slowest ones that have the most accuracy, because they'll make sure, I'm going to make sure that I get 2 shots here before I go to that guy. But while I'm engaging this guy, I'm going to make sure I'm behind cover and slicing the pie. I'm going to engage him, but I'm going to make sure that them 2 shots hit the heart first. And then I'm going to get this one here, but not exposing myself to the third one. But anyway, thanks for watching, you guys. I probably went off on a deep end and chasing a rabbit here, but just wanted to tell you some things about revolvers and semi-autos, that it's really not the capacity or what type of gun you have. It's the person behind the gun, how they train, and so many other variables. And the last point I want to make is that revolvers are not low capacity, okay? They might be low capacity as far as what you got in the cylinder. You got 5 in the cylinder. But if you have a few of these on you, that's not low capacity. You have a lot more rounds. So, but anyway, thanks for watching.